Okay, so what we're looking at here is this really incredibly detailed analysis of Candace Owens, her techniques, her ideology, and then that's paired with a long promotion for a documentary on Jews displaced from Arab lands.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff, but I think we have to jump right into the main structural challenge, because it feels like there's a serious tension between the two halves of this piece.
It really does. I mean, the focus feels split right down the middle. The sharp structural separation between the deep critique of Candace Owens' influence and the detailed documentary promotion ultimately dilutes the overall focus and impact of the material.
Exact. The first half is just riveting. You build this incredible narrative intensity. You perfectly capture her, what you call, malevolent brilliance.
Right.
The way she takes that open and shut Charlie Kirk murder case and just tries to spin it into a true crime mystery based on nothing, just sheer storytelling.
It's gripping, but then you slam on the brakes and pivot to the Real Nakba documentary, and it's just so jarring.
It's total whiplash for the listener, isn't it? You build up all this momentum, this urgency about her rhetoric, comparing her to Jim Garrison.
And the real-world harm, yeah.
All that high-stakes energy just vanishes. It suddenly feels like an infomercial has been dropped in.
Yeah, it comes across as two totally different scripts that were sort of fused together. So I think the suggestion here is to, really rethink how you introduce that documentary.
Or if they have to stay linked, you need a much, much stronger thematic bridge. Right now it's just, these are both about Jewish issues, which isn't really enough.
We need a reason, a structural reason, for why the listener has to hear about this specific historical documentary right now, after this intense modern critique.
And you know what? I think the ingredients for that bridge are already there. They're right in the first half of the script.
How so?
Well, you point out that Owens' whole strategy is based on weaponizing historical ignorance, right? You mention her claims.
Oh, right, like the Jews carried out the Bolshevik Revolution, or that the Holocaust is exaggerated.
Exactly. So maybe let's try a thematic bridge approach. You could explicitly frame the documentary as the antidote. It's the fact-based cure for the poison Owens is selling.
So the pitch becomes an answer to the question, how do we fight this kind of anti-Semitism?
Yes, you fight it with historical clarity. It makes the documentary feel like a necessary tool, like a piece of intellectual self-defense, not just a commercial break.
I like that a lot. That really maximizes the impact.
Now, if for some reason you absolutely have to keep all that detail in the documentary section, you could try structural separation, but you have to signpost it cleanly.
You mean like wrap up the Owens part completely first?
Right. Finish the whole analysis of her methods, Caldera engineering, the Egyptian plane, all that minutia, and then have a clear break, a call to action. But I gotta say, the bridge approach is definitely the stronger move for a cohesive narrative.
Okay, so let's move on to the body of the Owens critique itself. It's incredibly comprehensive. You've documented so many of her claims, but the pacing really slows down in the middle there.
And that noticed that too, yeah. To maximize listener engagement and maintain narrative drive, the critique of Owens relies too heavily on exhaustively listing her outlandish claims rather than synthesizing them into sharper thematic categories.
You have these really powerful, specific examples of her just, total intellectual bankruptcy, the Van Allen belt thing to say the moon landing was fake.
And the dinosaurs are fake and gay line.
Right. And then that long rapid-fire list of targets, JFK, Michael Jackson, Stalin, Ataturk, Epstein.
And that's all great research, but the weakness is that just listing it all out, it sacrifices synthesis for just quantity. You start to overwhelm the listener.
You just numb them to it.
Exactly. We know she promotes 100 conspiracies. The listener needs to understand her method. The goal is to analyze the con artist, not just list all of her cons.
So the suggestion is to group all those specifics, group them into categories that really highlight her methodology, her pattern of thinking.
Yes. Use the wild examples as the punchlines, Illustrative evidence, not just an endless inventory.
Okay, so for instance, you could focus on her pattern of attack. You list all those historical conspiracies. Harvard is a Mossad base. Israel did 9/11. Jews killed JFK and Michael Jackson.
You know it all.
Right, you could group all of that under her, Jew as prime mover pattern. That highlights her systematic reliance on these infamy narratives. It makes her agenda much clearer and, frankly, more chilling.
That's way more useful to a listener than just confirming she thinks Stalin was Jewish. It shows the architecture of her worldview.
And you can apply that same idea to the Kirk investigation details. Right. The script spends a lot of time on the minor details she obsesses over. Why someone said vehicle instead of car, or the specifics of some text. The listener probably already accepts it was an open and shut case.
The goal isn't to debunk every little piece of minutia. It's to analyze the tactic. So maybe we focus on the rhetorical method instead of spending time defending why someone might use the word vehicle.
You focus on how she piles on all those just asking questions, innuendos.
Precisely. How she uses these tiny, irrelevant details, Mikey McCoy's phone call, the vehicle thing, to just sow doubt everywhere. She forces people to defend basic, simple facts.
Which then makes the facts seem suspicious just because they needed defending. It's a cognitive trap.
That's it. And that elevates the critique from a simple fact check to a psychological analysis of how she creates what you call a parody of conspiracy theories.
So her goal isn't even to convince you of the conspiracy necessarily. It's just to paralyze you with endless doubt.
And that's a much faster, more compelling story to tell. By synthesizing, you keep that incredible pace you set at the beginning.
And that flow really needs to carry all the way to the end, which brings us back to that first structural issue. That urgency just evaporates right when it matters most.
It really does. The crucial significance of the Owens critique, warning the audience about the real-world danger of her influence, is obscured because the material's emotional climax and actionable summary are undercut by the documentary promotion.
Even point out she implies the Kirk killing was a military operation by Jewish donors. I mean, that's the peak of the intensity right there.
It is, and yet the final moments are all about the history of the 1948 Jewish expulsion, the urgency of countering this modern, rancid tradition, as you call it. It just gets lost.
So the final takeaway has to belong to the core argument about modern disinformation before you pivot to history. The suggestion is to make sure the conclusion explicitly addresses the purpose of the Owens critique first.
Summarize the current danger?
Exactly. Give that modern critique one last resonant moment. So a concrete example would be to recap the danger. Before you even mention the real Nakba, give us a brief, powerful summary. Remind the listener that Owens's actions, her pathological callousness toward Erica Kirk, that's a current, urgent threat.
Bring back that comparison to Jim Garrison's recklessness, cruelty, and abuse of power.
Yes. Land the plane. Let the listener feel the weight of the so what. Then you make a very intentional pivot.
A pivot that actually connects the two narratives.
You frame the transition clearly. State that countering modern anti-Semitism requires two things: exposing current lies, like from Owens, and correcting historical omissions, like the expulsion of 850,000 Jews from Arab land.
Okay, so that makes the documentary an extension of the fight for truth. It connects the modern lies to the necessary historical clarity.
It gives the whole piece a single, seamless purpose, even with two distinct topics. Look, this material is strong. I mean, the detailed analysis of her rhetorical tricks is fantastic. We just want to maximize that impact.
Absolutely. So to just summarize the actionable steps, we've got three main opportunities here. First, consolidate the focus. Integrate that documentary pitch thematically so it supports, not dilutes, the main argument.
Second, pick up the pace in the middle by synthesizing her claims into rhetorical categories instead of just listing.
And finally, make sure the conclusion really reinforces the urgent "so what" of the modern critique before you pivot to the historical documentary.
Do those three things, and this goes from being a really good piece of research to an unforgettable, tightly focused narrative. It'll just make the argument unavoidable.
We are genuinely excited to see how you synthesize these complex ideas into a faster, more focused narrative. We'd invite you to implement these structural and pacing adjustments. And please, submit your revised material back to us for another round of critique. We'd love to see the next version.